We are wrestling.
Hello there and welcome to the inaugural episode of the Debut Review, the series in which I take a look back into the first months of our favourite wrestlers' careers and their initial matches and feuds. In these videos I will only be taking into account main roster debuts, so if a superstar had a big career in a developmental territory, whether that be OVW, FCW or these days NXT, I might touch on their career there, but the focus in these videos will be on the wrestler's start in the big leagues. Today's subject is everyone's favourite arrogant third generation wrestler, Randy Orton. In a time before the voices in his head started to talk to him, fresh-faced young Randy debuted in his shiny pants and a smile on his face. April the 25th, 2002 Smackdown, this was his first televised match ever against Hardcore Holly. I assumed that Orton had entered WWE on that night, a fully formed sports entertainment practitioner hatched from a viper's egg earlier in the day, a man with wrestling in his blood thanks to his lineage, but apparently he'd spent a couple of years in WWE's feeder federation at the time, OVW. At Ohio Valley, he was perhaps a part of the most elite class of future superstars of all time, rubbing shoulders with John Cena, Batista, Brock Lesnar, and many others. Before Orton had even stepped foot in the ring, he already was making a name for himself backstage. Stacy Keibler, then Vince McMahon's assistant, liked what she saw, if you know what I mean. That was until McMahon caught her in the act flirting with Orton. She accused Orton of touching her and Vince decided now was the time for Orton to get his tryout for the main roster. The doubters were out in force on the commentary team, Michael Cole, annoying as always, especially excited to extol the virtues of Holly. Not a bad little back and forth match this debut contest, but it wouldn't be long before Orton managed to catch Holly in a roll-up for the victory. Holly looked decidedly livid in the middle of the ring there. Perhaps he'd become distracted by Orton's shiny pants. It is so easy to see in this debut match that every move was so natural to the future Viper. During this feud, WWE did a great job of protecting Randy by putting him in the ring against real veterans who knew what they were doing. Going forward, Orton faced journeyman wrestler Lance Storm with Holly as a special guest referee, and Orton teamed up with fan favourite Venis to face the team of Storm and Holly. Things were about to accelerate for Randy, that is until he would suffer a devastating shoulder injury that would sideline him for months. Before becoming injured, Orton had been traded to the Raw brand. Here's his debut against Steven Richards on September the 23rd, 2002, still wearing the shiny shorts and still very much a hand-slapping babyface. Richards hits his patented Steven kick, and from the sound made by him slapping his thigh, you'd think it would be all over. But no, a high cross body from Randall finishes off Richards for the 3 count. This was a good start for the lad on the red brand, but it wouldn't be long before that pesky separated shoulder would occur, putting doubts on the future of his career. Up until this point, you can see that Vince was determined to make Orton a star, giving him such a pristine debut so far in his young career. Orton looked like he had settled into the schedule on the road really well, and while he hadn't been able to prove himself in longer matches or pay-per-view events so far, his crispness in these TV matches showed that the guy would surely be a future icon in the business. An injury that puts any wrestler on the shelf for months is likely to derail their push, or at least put it on ice. Orton was in a precarious position here, as he was just getting over with the fans as a face, and with McMahon's reputation for losing interest in his pet projects, he could have ended up returning to a run in the main event scene of Velocity. Not that there's anything wrong with Velocity, I mean I used to love watching Velocity. Settling in to watch everyone's favourite hairdresser Rico week after week. Anyway, sorry, back to Orton. You can see now that Vince would not let the shoulder injury get in the way of the Orton project, and Randy should have been sighing a huge relief that Vince was so high on him at the time. Cue some of the finest vignettes ever aired on WWE TV. In a rather brilliant way of turning Orton heel while he was on the shelf, Orton would provide updates on a weekly basis as to how he was healing up from his terribly timed injury. right after one of the most pompous introductions to a segment of all time. Wait, it gets worse. They even wheeled out Bob Orton Sr., Randy's grandpa, who reflected on how his grandson is like a cross between George Clooney and Lou Thez. Randy himself lets us know that he loves women and apparently they love me. We get to see Randy at The World, the short-lived WWE nightclub in Times Square, signing autographs for adorning fans. Later in an interview, Orton stated that he'd be back in 3 to 4 months, but hey, the people could email him well wishes in the interim. Orton was well on the way to full heeldom, and the crowd that night let him know. From then on, fans were treated to RNN Breaking news segments. Randy, in front of the camera, with a crap-eating grin across his face, treated WWE fans across the globe to continuous Orton coverage, as he encouraged everyone to keep emailing well wishes, especially the lovely ladies. You really get a sense of the potential that Orton has as a heel going forwards in these segments. He's so easy to dislike. Orton has stated in interviews that he feels more comfortable playing heel, and his early work really backs that up. Early 2003, and Tommy Dreamer, wrestling's favourite whipping boy since 1993, was ambushed by Triple H, Ric Flair, Batista and Randy Orton in the middle of the ring on Raw. Happy New Year, Tommy. Triple H had already been hanging around with Ric Flair since September 2002 after Flair gave the assist to Hunter during a match against RVD at Unforgiven for the big gold belt. The dirtiest player still had a lot in the tank, as he aligned himself with the Cerebral Assassin. Now Hunter wanted to broaden their horizons as Randy attacked Scott Steiner during a match with Batista, and all four men beat down poor Big Papa Pump. Randy Orton was placed in esteemed company in what would become one of the most dominant factions of all time. Hunter ran down why each member of the team was unique. When he came to Orton, the boos were already flowing down from the cheap seats. He'd already done an incredible job of establishing himself as a heel, and now as part of this brand new stable, there would be no doubt that Orton was on course to becoming a legitimate wrestling superstar. Triple H in the ring said, "The business is in his blood, a third generation superstar. The man has every gift a man can be given. Raw genetic talent. Randy Orton is the coal that will be squeezed into the next diamond." He wasn't wrong. Under the tutelage of two of the greatest minds in the history of the business in Triple H and Ric Flair in Evolution, Orton cemented himself as one of the company's top heels. By December, Orton had held the Intercontinental Championship and later went on to become WWE's youngest world champion in August 2004, and what an accolade that was for the young Randy. This was a fast ascent to the top by anyone's standards, and by WWE standards it involved almost flawless booking, just like this first year of his career. Randy Orton's debut was incredibly well handled, despite an injury that took him out for months and could have derailed him permanently. The time was used to his advantage on the shelf, and the transition from returning from injury and joining Evolution just made great sense and was handled really well as well. We all know Orton's career trajectory from here on out, but you can never deny that he had an incredible early career in WWE.
Are you ready?